Hello everyone, Aaron here from ASM Computing. Sorry it's been a little while since my last tutorial. I'm going to be doing this tutorial for you today, which is going to be a jQuery and CSS active state navigation or buttons. The difference with this compared to other ones is that this is not going to be using an extension like .html or .php from the URL. This is just going to be using a pound or hash symbol, which is what is used within jQuery to say that it's not going to be linked anywhere. And as you can see, I've got a light grey background with orange writing, which is my active state. The buttons, when they're not hovered or clicked over, are a very light grey with a medium grey text, and when you hover, it's the same colour background as our active state, and it's just got blue writing. But that works for all of the buttons. And once you click, you can see now that the profile has took the active state and the overview has now took to the rest of the buttons. So we can click any of them buttons and it will all do the same thing. And the other good thing is, if you're on the last button and say you come, or you've just come into the page, or you refresh the page after being on that last button, you'll see that the overview then takes back to that active state. So if I show you just above my taskbar down here at the bottom left of the video, or the bottom left of the screen, if I hover over this, you'll see that it's got demo.php hash, and that will be the same for all of my buttons. As I said, that hash represents that the link doesn't go anywhere. So let's get started. Before I start with any of the coding, I just want to note to you guys that I'm going to be using Dreamweaver CS5, but you guys can use any other text editor of your choice, such as Notepad or Notepad++. So the choice is your own. And I'm going to open up my Dreamweaver. As you can see, I've already opened and named my page demo.php, but I've blanked everything back out of what I originally had in here. I'm going to start from scratch, but I'm going to be keeping everything in one page, just for you guys to see it a lot easier, and it saves me having to have different tabs, and then you guys might get lost. So keeping it all in one page makes it easier for me and you. So at the moment, all I've got is jQuery active state within my title tags, and that is this part here. And then underneath that, this line here, this is my jQuery library that I've downloaded from jQuery.com. So if you need that, head over to jQuery.com, download the latest library. You can either download it as a minified version or a development version, or you can use the alternative of the Google API, which will bring that in for you. And underneath that, I've just got an opening and closing script tag for text and JavaScript. This is where my jQuery code is going to be sitting. And then underneath that, it's just my style tags for the CSS. As I said, these two here can be made into so this one here can be made into a JS file and then included into this. And the same for the CSS, that can be made into a cascading style sheet and included into this page. But as I said, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm keeping everything within one page. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is inside my body tags, I'm going to give a div ID of cp_menu, if I can spell that, and break down a couple of lines and close that div off. And just make sure you Control S, or if you're on a Mac, Command, I believe it's Command S, which will save the file for you, just so that every little detail you make, you can save it, just in case you do have problems, like your computer decides to shut off. At least you would have had most of it saved. So within that div, or before I show you, as you can see on the design view, all we've got is just our div here that's sitting in the middle of the page. And inside of this div, I'm just going to add a couple of links. Well, I'm going to add one and then I'll just copy and paste it down because I'm going to have 5 buttons. So A, and I'm going to give this a class now before I set it in the CSS. And I'm going to give this a class of CP underscore buttons. And just so you know that the ID of CP menu is just something I made up, which is short for control panel menu. And the class of CP buttons will be control panel buttons. And also within the CP buttons of this first link, I'm going to put space active. This is going to be telling this first button we want you to be active. So you can have 2 classes within one link, just make sure it's space separated. Then after that we're going to be href, and that's going to be pound or hash. And also, just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere once it's been clicked, as I've known some browsers, when you have the hash symbol, it can take you to the top of the browser page. So we're just going to put on click, and we're going to put return false, just to make sure that that doesn't actually go anywhere. So we're going to close that off, and inside of here, we won't put that link just yet, we'll just make the actual tags up first. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste that another 4 times. Ooh, one more. And all we need to do is just take this active out of here, like so. And now we can put our links in. So the first one I'm just going to name as home. I know this we said was going to be a control panel, but I'm just giving these any sort of names I can think of. As I said, it's only for tutorial purposes. So the next one we're going to put as services. We can call this one blog, and we'll call this one contact. Okay, so save that. Go back to design, and you can see we've got 5 links inside of our div. They don't actually do anything. Even if we clicked on live view, all we do is just get a standard cursor which shows us that it's a link, nothing else. So go back into our code. Okay, so now that's done, that's all we need to do for our body. The next part is we're going to start on the CSS. The JavaScript or the jQuery, it's going to be 2 functions with 2 lines of code, so that's why I'm going to leave that till last. So the CSS, the first part we're going to start off with is going to be our CP menu. To start that out first. So we're going to need the pound sign or hash symbol, which represents an ID. As we said, we named our div ID of CP menu, so this hash would represent the ID. CP underscore menu. And come down and close that off, and inside of here is where we're going to actually set whatever CSS styling we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is give this a width of 900 pixels, and make sure that any styling you put, you end with a semicolon. Come down 1 line, and I'm going to put a text, a line of left. This is the reason I like using Dreamweaver. I know everyone says it isn't really classed as coding out your site. It is really, it's just being lazy as you like, but it's just an easier way to do it. So we're going to text align that to the left, and we're going to give the margin 0 auto. Now the reason for that is we don't want any margins to the left and the right, but the reason we're putting it to auto is if you're viewing on a small screen, it will still take into consideration the margin left and right, and it will always evenly distribute a set pixels left and right, just to make sure that the div we've actually got will sit in the center of the screen. I'll show you that in a moment. Let's just add our last one to this. I'm just going to give it a padding top, so it comes down from the top of the browser by about 10 pixels. So I'm going to save that. If I go into design, you'll now see that we have our div here, which is centered into the screen. If I highlight that, you can see there's our 10 pixel of padding. And this here with the lines left and right is our margin. So if we look here, this has got marginal of 237 pixel, and the right is 237 pixels. So it will always distribute evenly left and right. So it's always good to use margin 0 auto, and that will always keep that to whatever size your div is. Okay, so the next part is we're going to give the ID again, the hash, cp underscore menu, and this time we're going to put A. We want to reference the links that are inside the div. So we're going to give them a border, and we're going to give that a 1 pixel solid. Give that a hash of, let's go for a dark color of 666, just so it stands out. Obviously you can change these colors and the size of the pixels for the border, or any other part of this CSS you can change up to however you want. I'm just literally putting this in to show you how to make it, so feel free to change these up however you like. The next one we're going to give is a padding of the top, so basically where the words are, so whatever we've called home, about, services, it's just going to put a padding at the top of that, just to make sure it's more or less in the center of the button. And we're going to give that 3 pixels, and we're going to give the padding at the bottom of 1 pixel, just to give that a tiny bit of padding. The next one we're going to give a padding left, and we're going to give that 8 pixel, and the same for the right. Give that a padding right of 8 pixel. And the last thing we need is, because we're specifying to the links within this div, obviously we don't want an underline on there, so we're going to say text decoration, and that's going to be none. So close that one off with a curly brace, save that, and go back into design, and now you can see we're going to live view. So now we have a button starting to take shape. And as I said, the spacing and the padding and that, it just makes it look a bit better. Now the reason these links are blue, this is standard link colors that you get when you make a link, and when it's clicked, I don't know if you could sort of see that just then, but basically when it's on your page, on your server, anyone that clicks on that link without giving them a text color, once it's been clicked, it will turn like a maroon purpley color. So it's always best to give your own colored links, which is what we're going to be doing right now. So I'm going to come out of live view and go back to our code, and the next one underneath our CP menu A, as you may have guessed, is going to be hash CP menu A, and this time we're going to put colon hover. So obviously this is the color of the background, or the color of the text we want once we hover over it. So our background, we're going to give a color of hash, and we'll go with 999 just to make it a bit of a lighter grey, and our color of the text will make hash 069, which is just a light or a darkish sort of blue. I'll save that, just come back to design, go to live view. You see once we start hovering, our colours are starting to take effect to them buttons. Just thought I'd keep going to the design view just to show you the difference once we've inserted the CSS styling, just so you can see exactly what's being changed, so you know exactly what's changed for your own benefit. So underneath of here is now the two CSS styles that we're going to be linking to our jQuery. So these two are very important. So to start these, we're going to put a.cp underscore buttons. Open the curly brace, break down a couple of lines, close the curly brace. Now the reason for a.cp buttons, obviously the A represents this A tag. The dot here represents class, which is what this is here. And obviously CP buttons is what we give our name or our class name. So basically what this says here is just basically the same as this here, A class CP buttons. So inside of here, I'm going to give the background colon hash, and I'm going to give this the background of let's just go with CCC, and we'll give that a colour of 333 just to make it, oh, forgot the hash there, hash 333, just to darken that up a little bit, just so you guys can see it a bit easier. As I said, if I go into design again, you can see now that this is our buttons. So this is the effect that we've got at the moment. We'll carry on with this. Come down, and the last CSS that we need is a.cp underscore btns for buttons. Same as what we've just done, apart from this time we're going to add another dot representing a class again, and active, which basically, I'll just curly brace, break down a couple of lines, curly brace, which basically shows this here as this here. So a dot, which is class CP buttons, dot again of class of active, and as I said, this is the first two classes that we've got within this first link. So this is going to be the one that takes the active state. So for this, I'm going to give it a background, just so you guys can see this a bit clearer from the last one that I've done. I'm going to do 333, and I'm going to give the colour of the text, I'm going to make that pound or hash FFF, which is just going to be white. So that's basically our CSS done. So if I go to design, you can already see that our first button is already took to the active state. So if I go to live view, hover over our links, they all still take to the same hover, but it's just none of them will do anything at the moment, just because we haven't actually implemented the jQuery to these buttons. So that's going to be the next thing to do right now. So we'll come out of live view, go back into our code, and I'm going to come up and insert the jQuery. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is $, open parenthesis, double speech, and we're going to say dot, and the first one we need to do, oh no, sorry, my mistake, I'm going too quick on myself now. Sorry guys, I'm getting too ahead of myself. Sorry, it should be document dot ready. So basically we're saying to the DOM, only fire these functions once this page is loaded and the DOM is ready. So we're going to open a parenthesis after ready, write in function, open close parenthesis, space, or you don't actually have to have a space, but I just prefer it, open bracket, break down a couple of lines, we want a close bracket, close parenthesis, semicolon. So that makes our document.ready function nest. With inside of this, we're going to put $, sorry guys, $, parenthesis, and we're going to need now the double speech mark, and we're going to say a class of CP underscore buttons. I'm going to say double speech again, close the parenthesis. We're going to put dot. We're going to say click. Again, open parenthesis, function. So basically, anytime that this class of CP buttons is clicked, this is what we want to do. So open the bracket, couple of breaks, close the bracket, close the parenthesis, semicolon. So that makes our next nest for our click function. I'll save that. So inside of here is the 2 lines of code that we need, which is just going to be basically adding and removing the class of the active. So to get this to work, all we need to do is $, which is how we reference anything from jQuery to anything within our page. So we're saying $, open parenthesis, double speech. I can't think what the word of they are, so I just say double speech, just to make it a bit easier for myself. I'm going to say a dot, remember dot means class, CP underscore buttons, and this time we're going to add again dot active, and we're going to double speech mark, close the parenthesis, and here we're going to put dot remove class, and inside of an opening parenthesis we're going to put double speech active, double speech, close the parenthesis, semicolon. So basically what we're going to, well, I'll tell you what it's basically doing in a moment. Let me just write this last function in, or this last class in, and then I can obviously explain exactly what this is doing. So $, open parenthesis, this, close the parenthesis, and we're going to say dot add class, and we're going to add the class of active, like so, and I'm going to save that, and that should be it. So we've got a.cpButtons.click function. So anytime the button's clicked with the CP buttons class, we're going to set the active, or any of the other buttons that have got the class of active, we're going to remove, which is what this line here is doing. It's just finding any of the buttons with the .active or the class of active, it's going to remove that class. This line here is basically saying that this, so any of the links that you click on, whether it be home, about, services, this is referencing to whatever button has been clicked. We want to add the class of active. And just so you can see and make sure that any of the add class or remove class, you make sure that you capitalize the C. This is just because of these are referenced within jQuery's library, so it needs to obviously be spelt correctly, otherwise it won't work. So that is basically all of the script. So anything you need to copy down or you wasn't too sure on, obviously leave me a message, comments below the video. But anything you need to see again, obviously just pause the video, copy it down. But if I now go into our design, obviously nothing looks any different. Go to live view, and now see that everything looks exactly the same apart from, so if I start clicking, now have our functioning active state. And also I'm going to upload this quickly to my server. I know we're nearly at 25 minutes, so I'm going to quickly end it in a minute. But I just want to get this up on the server so you can see it working live. Let's go back to here. I'm going to refresh. And obviously these are the ones we just made. But I just want to show you it working on a live server. So it ain't just in Dreamweaver. So home, services, blog, contact, blog. As I said, if we stay on the last one, refresh, the home button then takes back to the active state. So I hope that helps, guys, and as I said before, any comments or any problems you have, obviously just leave me a comment below the video, and please rate and like my videos. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you soon.